Overnight, fighting erupted along the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, where border checkpoints appear to have been overrun and Pakistani airstrikes targeted and destroyed Taliban facilities. Now, this is a developing situation, but here's what we know so far as of 8 a.m. Central on Sunday, October 12th, 2025. CNN said that firefights broke out along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border late on Saturday, with the Afghan Taliban attacking Pakistani posts following a Pakistani airstrike in Kabul earlier this week. And more details on that strike here in a moment. Pakistani security officials said they were responding with full force to what they called unprovoked firing from Afghanistan. The exchange of fire took place at more than 6 locations along the border. Now, in looking at the results of last night's fighting, I want to start by saying the information space here is very muddy right now. We at Baseline do not have very good sources, very reliable, consistent sources from inside of Afghanistan, and haven't for quite a while. So a lot of what you're going to get in today's video is the Pakistani perspective. I'm going to try to sprinkle in as much as I can from the Taliban, but no, in terms of any sort of verification, we're just not really getting much of that from the Taliban side. Now, Pakistan says that last night, 23 of their soldiers were killed. That is significant, no matter how you cut it. 23 soldiers killed overnight by the Taliban. They say that their forces were able to kill 2,200 Taliban and affiliated terrorists. And the BBC quoted the Taliban spokesperson saying that the Taliban killed 58 Pakistani military personnel, wounded 30 others, and then the Taliban are claiming that only 9 of their fighters died, with between 16 and 18 injured. CNN went on to say the Taliban has claimed that they captured 3 Pakistani border posts, and Pakistani security officials said their military has destroyed several Afghan posts. We're going to see a lot of footage in today's video of airstrikes being carried out against Taliban locations. We do also have some footage showing Pakistani troops taking over Afghan or Taliban outposts. I have not at this point seen any footage, verifiable footage, of the Taliban taking over and occupying Pakistani outposts. That might be out there, and maybe I just haven't seen it. No doubt there's information I've missed at this point. I haven't seen the verification from the Taliban side. Now, in terms of what got us here, there's a couple key events I want to point to in the last couple weeks. There was a attack carried out by the Pakistani Taliban, TTP, that killed 11 Pakistani soldiers about a week ago, and then a little over a week ago. And then earlier this week, the Pakistani Air Force carried out an airstrike in Kabul in response to that. So stepping back a little bit, Bill Raggio, the Long War Journal, he said the movement of the Taliban TTP in Pakistan killed 11 Pakistani soldiers, including 2 officers, in an ambush in a northwestern province. He said the Pakistani troops were conducting an intelligence-based operation in a traditional Taliban stronghold when they battled the jihadist force. He said the TTP has stepped up attacks in Pakistan, particularly in the northwest, since a ceasefire with the Pakistani government was cast aside in November 2022. And that led, the response to that, according to Pakistan, was a strike on Kabul and a couple other areas in Afghanistan on October 9th. Radio Free Europe did a write-up there where they said the target of these strikes in Kabul late on October 9th was Nur Wali Massoud, the leader of the TTP, which is also known as the Pakistani Taliban. Longtime allies, the sides have fallen out over the Afghan Taliban's alleged sheltering of the TTP, which has waged a deadly insurgency against Islamabad for years. In a statement on October 10th, the Taliban Defense Ministry condemned what it said were Pakistani airstrikes in Paktika and Islamabad's violation of Kabul's sovereign territory. And the Pakistani General Chaudhry said, quote, "To safeguard Pakistani lives and properties, what measures need to be taken will be taken." And that brings us to last night's attacks. Most of what I can tell at this point is that it was initiated by the Taliban, opening fire with small arms, mortars, RPGs, maybe even D-30 howitzers, like artillery pieces, 122 millimeter howitzers, firing across the border into Pakistan. It also sounds like there were some small unit raids trying to capture, and according to the Taliban, successfully capturing some of these border outposts. Turning to the Pakistani series of events here, we're going to PTV News, where they say on the night of 11-12 October 2025, the Afghan Taliban, and bear with me on the pronunciation here, Indian-sponsored Fitna al-Kharaj launched an FAK. We're coming back to that. It's going to be FAK throughout the video. Launched an unprovoked attack on Pakistan along the Pak-Afghan border. The cowardly action, which included fire and a few physical raids, was aimed at destabilizing the border areas to facilitate terrorism. So keep in mind, the Pakistan the way they're presenting this is terrorism is emanating from Afghanistan. We are responding to stop that terrorist threat. They say the armed forces of Pakistan repelled the assault all along the border and inflicted heavy casualties on the Taliban. Precision fires and strikes, as well as physical raids, were directed against Taliban camps and posts. Terrorist training facilities and support networks operating from Afghan territory, including elements linked to FAK, FAH, and ISKP. So real quick, a couple of acronyms here. FAK is just another, the one that I butchered a second ago. It's just another term for the TTP. So think Pakistani Taliban. FAH, different organization or grouping of organizations. These are the bloke separatists that are accused by Pakistan of being backed by India. Long-standing fights going on there. And then, of course, ISKP, Islamic State, Khorasan Province. So Pakistan is saying to Afghanistan, you are harboring, at the very least, these three terrorist organizations. We are going to continue striking until you get them out of your country. PTV said all possible measures were taken to avoid collateral damage and to protect civilian lives. As a result of these unrelenting operations, multiple Taliban locations were destroyed all along the border. 21 hostile positions on the Afghan side were also briefly physically captured, and multiple terrorist training camps used to plan and facilitate attacks against Pakistan were rendered inoperative. While the people of Pakistan prefer constructive diplomacy and dialogue over violence and belligerence, we will not tolerate the treacherous use of Afghan soil for terrorism against Pakistan. We have noted with concern that this serious provocation has occurred during the visit of the Taliban foreign minister to India, the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the region. It is in the interest of regional peace and security, we call upon the Taliban government to take immediate and verifiable actions to neutralize the terrorist groups, FAK, FAH, and ISKP, from operating inside their territory. Otherwise, Pakistan will continue to exercise its right to defend its people by persistent neutralization of terror targets. The people and the state of Pakistan will not rest until the menace of terrorism emanating from Afghanistan is completely eliminated. Look, I feel like at least some portions of that statement from PTV that's coming from the Pakistani government could have been made by the United States post 9/11 to the Taliban when they were harboring Al-Qaeda. So very similar language being used there. And we have known for a while that, they're only calling out FAK, FAH, and ISKP. What they're not calling out here is Al-Qaeda. And we have known through some United Nations sanctioned monitoring team reports in recent months, really since the fall of Kabul to the Taliban a few years ago, Al-Qaeda has made a significant resurgence in Afghanistan. So we got a lot of other things we're working on right now. I got it. But Afghanistan being used as a safe haven and a launch point for terrorist operations is not off the map. That is still very much a thing. In fact, ISKP, one of the groups mentioned here, has more and more been trying to piece together and has effectively carried out international operations. So ISKP, for instance, carried out the bombing in Tehran a little over a year ago, carried out one or two major attacks inside of Russia at the same time. So ISKP, based in Afghanistan, very much an international threat. Now, the Taliban, for their part, has said, that's it. We did it. We were successful. We're going to stop. I'm not sure that's exactly how this is playing out right now, but during a press conference in Kabul, Taliban spokesperson said that the overnight operation along the Durand line had succeeded in overrunning more than 20 Pakistani checkpoints. He explained that the Taliban halted their attack following mediation by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. However, he added that despite the cessation of their operations, Pakistan fired artillery into Afghanistan's Helmand and Paktika provinces this morning, and he warned that the Taliban would respond if aggression continues. And from there's been some footage this morning. I can't tell if it's new, recycled, or even older than that. It looks like Pakistan's strikes inside of Afghanistan are continuing. They are continuing to go after, from what I can tell, Taliban military facilities. And this one's kind of messing with me a little bit because they're going after some of these facilities that I'm familiar with. Back in 2012, at least, I was in East Afghanistan and trained the 201st Afghan Corps, ANA, Afghan National Army Corps, in the use of D-30 howitzers. The 122 millimeter howitzers, we trained those guys and set them up at some of those bases. It sounds like those howitzers and those soldiers now are a part of the Taliban and they're firing into Pakistan. So it's kind of it's going to be weird for a lot of Americans. Spent time in Afghanistan, seeing some of their bases at this point getting blown off the map by Pakistan. It does sound like the Taliban have maybe floated a couple ceasefire agreements, just saying, guys, look, we're good. Let's call it. I'm not sure Pakistan's on board with that at this point. From what I can see right now, it looks like Pakistan is kind of fed up with the continuation of these terror attacks happening inside of their territory, hosted from inside of Afghanistan. And it looks like maybe a line was crossed and they said enough is enough. We're going to go in and we're going to do what we can to at least knock the Taliban back a little bit. Now, a couple things to watch for here in the next couple hours and days. Of course, the continuation of hostilities. I want to stress the reporting coming from the Afghan side in this, the Taliban side, is sparse at best. So we are pretty heavily reliant right now, and there's just not like international reporters roaming freely throughout Afghanistan. So we're pretty heavily reliant on the Pakistani version of events, but it does sound like they are continuing today to execute strikes and try to dismantle some of these terror organizations inside of Afghanistan. That's one thing to keep an eye on. The other, when it comes to those strikes, is this is night and day. Look, Pakistan has the clear upper hand when it comes to conventional military forces. Yes, the Taliban, we've got some videos of the Taliban rolling around in their U.S. Humvees, right? And we know there's a lot of American equipment that was left behind. We even saw that parade a while ago where they showcased all of their equipment on the tarmac and look at all this wonderful stuff that some was left by the U.S. A lot was taken from the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police. And they've also been on the receiving end of some equipment from other nations as well. None of that is going to stop airstrikes from the Pakistani military. It's just not. So we're seeing that clear upper hand by Pakistan being utilized right now. We do know the Taliban have a pretty good knack at conducting unconventional warfare. So, no indications that this is going to lead to any sort of ground war anytime soon. What I would expect to see is kind of continued skirmishing along the border. Small arms fire, RPGs, mortars, and artillery, while Pakistan executes this air campaign against Taliban targets and probably, honestly, going after ISKP as well. That'd be nice, kind of help us out here in the United States while they're at it. But either way, very muddy situation as it sits right now. Definitely a significant increase in hostilities along the Af-Pak border. We'll see where it goes from here. Of course, if you find this video or any videos of value, please consider becoming a patron. That link is in the description below. That is the best way to support this channel. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.